Okay.
I can hear my clock going off.
Okay. Did you let them all in?
Yep.
Hang on. They're coming in. Woo!
All right. Woo-hoo.
Hey, everybody.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to our final panel for the evening. The Astroctadra. I never can pronounce that, Vera.
That's all right. This is why we're having this panel. It's the language
Yes,
panel.
that's
Yes.
right.
Astroctadra.
Mission control room.
There we go.
Astroctadra.
Astroctadra. There we go.
Astroctadra. All right, now I got
Yes,
it.
you got it.
Atlanteo. It's a completely made up language, ancient language of fictional Atlantis. And with us is our very own Vera Nazarian, and I have Terry and Shelley helping to moderate.
Yay. Thank you, guys.
Okay. So Vera, we understand Atlanteo, the fictional language of Atlantis in the books, is completely made up.
Yes.
What
It
went
sure
into
is.
the creation of this artificial language?
All right, let me get to it, you guys. This is good. Fun stuff. Okay, first of all, what would make a person decide, dang, I'm going to create a language? How crazy is that, right? For whether it be for a book or just, for your own sake. Some people actually have sat down to do that, and there are known artificial languages. I think people know about Esperanto. You may have heard of this. This is an actual artificial language made up, and they use different rules. I think they used a lot of Latin and other things, but people say, I know nothing. I know no details about it, but except that people sat down, they created grammar, vocabulary, cases, everything. And people have studied this language and they have spoken it. So it's one of the most best known artificial languages that we have, at least in the contemporary times. But there's also another really known language, that's Klingon. And that's much better known for some of us who actually enjoy, the science fiction world and so on, Star Trek. So this is not an uncommon thing. People have made up languages before. Now, in my case, to get into Atlanteo was a very strange and slow process. I did not set out to have a full language. All right. Just telling you guys up front, I had set out to have words. So I would be writing along and maybe qualify. And then, what would be a good word for this in this alien language? These aliens have a language. And I'm like, okay, let me go with my gut. Let me think about what I know about rules of grammar, about historical differences in like ancient Egypt, Greek, and let me just go with it and create a word or two. So I would literally come up with a few words, and that's all I would have. There was no rules, no any underlying logic to it, but just my gut feeling. So later on, as there are more and more words and phrases, you notice I start to get into phrases, especially in compete. I think we started to have Anu going on with, mouthing off and, spouting things and just saying things. And I said, you know what? I think we have a language happening.
Gwen did mention in compete that, yes, she had her Atlanteo classes.
That's right.
She learned all the good curse words from Anu.
That's right. And that's how you do it on Earth. You learn all the good curse words.
And you do have some good curse words.
Yes, we do. And I made sure that we do, because that's important. When you start learning a language, that's what the kids do. So yeah, I started with kind of just like, let's get this word and that word and maybe this, and whatever fits the scenes, the needs of the chapter, the needs of the whatever these people are talking about in that moment. And eventually I decided, let's get a little bit more logical. Let's put some order into this, because any language, no matter how strange it may sound, there are underlying logical rules in the way it works. And, you know, whether it's English or Mandarin Chinese or Armenian, there's certain things and there's certain commonalities and there's certain major differences. For example, just to give you kind of, I always love to give this example because it slightly blows people's minds. In Russian, there is no word order, which means that you can say a sentence, the words in a sentence can be put in any order of appearance. And it makes a slight nuance difference, however you pronounce it. For example, let's just say, I am going to the store to buy some milk. A very simple English, right, phrase. Well, in Russian, you could say something like, some milk to, I am going the store, and it just kind of put them in different phrases, and you, whatever word you stress and whatever word appears earlier, or it's just basically a nuance. It changes the slight meaning or the emphasis in that sentence. So you might want to say that it's the milk that I'm going for to go to the store, or I'm going to get some milk, I'm going to the store, as opposed to a gas station, you know. So it's like these weird little nuances, and it's all grammar. This is determined by word order. So a language can be different just by means of word order. It could be different by means of word endings, like the suffixes and the prefixes, and like whatever you add to a noun at the front and the back. But, you know, how do I know all this stuff? I've studied a lot of languages. So to have a sense of all this stuff, you kind of have to know more than one. I think it helps. I mean, I'm sure there's some brilliant linguists who just know their English or they know their Russian or whatever, you know, their starting language, but it always helps to have that comparison, because what you're doing is you are picking at the roots of things. Because one thing that all languages, or many families of languages that share together, they're roots of words. And they can kind of carry across languages. And because, you know, like, let's say Romance languages, things like Italian, it's a group. Latin, Italian, Spanish, French, you know, when you put all these words together.
Zapp, I'm Alex.
When you're putting all these different, like a family of words of languages together, you may only know one or two of them. Like, let's say I've never studied French, but because I know Spanish, I can understand a lot of French. It's bizarre. I've literally found that because I have studied one language of that family, I can pick up the nuance of a sentence and the gist from a completely unknown language to me. I've never studied it. I've never done vocabulary and so on. So this is just to give you guys a background. I personally am a multi-language speaker. As you know, I've studied English. My first native language is Russian. I'm also a native Armenian speaker, but not as well, because Armenian is kind of like a secondary language in my family. I've studied English, then I've studied Spanish in high school. I've studied Mandarin Chinese in college. I've started to study German in college. And I think I mean, some people out there know way more than that. This is not even anything, but it gives me enough of a grouping of different families of languages across the world to give me a good sense of how language works. So I can intuitively come up with a word that sounds like what it would be. In Atlanteo, you know, how would I say mother? I don't know, but I have a sense of what the word mother is in French, German, Armenian, Spanish, Russian, you name it. And I just asked myself in my gut, what would it sound like? What would it feel like? What logically would it be like? You know, the word mother is usually mat, my, mama. So it's like all these common terms. It's like the ma sound. So that's mother in so many languages across the world. But if I did something like for the word mother and Atlanteo, if I decided to say, that would not make much sense, right? It's a bizarre, unlogical choice. There is no connection to anything that human culture has done. You know, most cultures do not call their mother unless they're Klingon. Maybe they do. So that's how I started to do Atlanteo. I decided to look inside my you know, what's in my gut from what the words and the roots of words that I know across the board, and kind of say, okay, what would be more like a combination of Egyptian and Greek, and just kind of mix it up, throw in some real words from those languages, and then just go for it, you know, sound it out, spell it out in my mind, and just, you know, come up with words. So that's how Atlanteo was born. And the word itself, Atlanteo, is also a form. It's like, it's a logical way to describe a language. So it could be, it's not Atlantean, it's Atlanteo. And that's how, it's kind of like saying the word Atlantean in the language itself. And there we go. But strange, mysterious ways. That's how you create languages.
Well, I will add that also too, by using roots of the ancient languages that we know of, Atlanteo was the actual language that those evolved from, correct?
That's right, a proto-language. And that's a term that is used to refer to like this really, really ancient language. That's like the one single language from which everything came. And a lot of people think Sanskrit, the language in ancient India and, you know, that whole area, Sanskrit is considered a proto-language in many ways, but we don't really know. It could be going even further back than that. So it's like, it's a mystery. Languages are mysterious, and the further we dig into ancient history, the more we find out, but it's only more questions. So, hey, anything goes. It could be there is really Atlanteo is the root of all things.
Terry, do you have a question for Vera?
I think she's on mute.
Sorry. No, yeah, for the moment.
And as you guys are looking up, I just want to remind everyone that we've had a panel session where I went through the glossary in the back of, you cannot see it because of my background, but there we go. I can hold it up. There's Ace and Blue. So in the back of Ace and, or is it in the front? Yeah, in the back. I have the first ever glossary because I had made lists of these words, but I have not included them in any of the previous tag books because I think I'm going to include them in the end of the Book of Everything. So the Book of Everything is going to have a full glossary of all the terms as far as we get in the series. But there's also going to be a language dictionary. So that's going to be a completely separate thing. And that's going to come out later. And that's going to be in its own book. You know, it'll be called the Atlantean Dictionary or the Dictionary of Atlanteo. So that's coming up. And I would like to come up with grammar rules with, you know, all kinds of other things for it. So, you know, to take it as far as I can go into making an actual artificial language you can study, where you can learn the grammar, learn the vocabulary, and just speak. You know, start saying things like nefero dea, nefero eos, you know, just have a conversation. Who knows, maybe we'll have conversation classes. Because by the way, just as an FYI, I have taught Russian conversation classes before. And so I'm pretty good at like making you learn something, you know, really, really quickly. I can make you pick up a language and just kind of get into it. So we may actually do that eventually if I have enough of the rules of grammar for Atlanteo. So stay tuned.
There was a question, Vera, that said, how do you pronounce all those Atlantean words and names? But I don't know how much of that you've gone over in the other session. So I don't know.
I've gone to the literal pronunciations I've already done. So you've seen that in the glossary section. But I do want to mention that in general, like a rule of pronunciation, you would pronounce every letter as it's written. And I try to separate each vowel. For example, the word for T in Atlanteo is aeogir. It's a, e, o, j, i, r. So every letter is pronounced separately. And if it helps people who have studied Spanish, which is kind of like a basic go-to term, think Spanish. You would pronounce every single letter separately in that sense. In many cases, not 100% of the time, but most of the time. So that's how you would pronounce Atlanteo. If whatever you see on the page, if you go by and pronounce every single letter separately, that's pretty much how it is. Now, there are some differences where the TH sound, like the, thetas, like Themyscira, the name of the Sky Tangle city, the area of Poseidon. That's TH. That you do not say Themyscira, you say the sound, the same as, it's kind of like a Greek theta sound. So there are certain similarities again to Greek, and it's the same rules of grammar. There are certain ancient Egyptian terms and literally things that I've picked up, and I'm not going to get into the details again because you have the glossary, so you can watch that later. But yeah, so just separate each vowel and try to think Spanish.
So pronounce rolls.
Goo, that's right. Just it's like a double U or a long U. Whenever you double a vowel, it's a long sound. So it's goo, goo rolls. It's not just goo, it's goo. Goo. There we go. And who is Rob?
Yeah,
Rob needs to be, you need to put yourself on mute, Rob.
and everyone is supposed to
Thank
be
you.
on mute, and they're not supposed to be shown. So
Well, I think it's because he wasn't on mute and we have speaker view, so
That's all right.
that's okay. It's no big deal. So would you pronounce, just for me, Zapp's name?
Zapp.
Zapp.
Yeah, and I think that was even a joke, and I intentionally did it, where Gwen called him Zapp, and he said, my name is not Zapp, it's Zapp. So it's Zapp, Zapp. It's a long A sound or A sound.
and of course, Bree mispronounced everything.
Yes.
You know,
Bree intentionally did, yeah.
Did it on purpose. So she actually was pretty smart and she knew how to say it right, but most of the time she just wanted to show her annoyance. So she would just, and
The
we know
hardest ones.
she
are
came up
ones
with
where-
fuzzy bottom, so that's a good one.
I'm sorry, the hardest ones for me are the ones where a double letter is pronounced differently in English than I think it would be in Atlanteo, like bashto.
Bashtu.
Okay, so is it two? Because normally the O would be a long O, but the combination of the two becomes a two, like the word two. So that was confusing.
I decided to make it easier for English speakers. So yes, this is a break from the normal rule. So it's bashtu. The two O's together is not like goo, would have been like bashto, but it's not, it's bashtu. Because I wanted, there's certain of the, let's call it the family of curse words, because I wanted to make it easier for the reader just to kind of say it out, and we're staying with that pronunciation. And if I wrote it out as bashtu with like a U, it would not have had that same kind of explicative energy. So just for the sake of energy, we decided to go bashtu is like a U sound. So in that case, it breaks the rule. So there you go. Good question.
we had Arwen was asking if you worked closely with the audible narrator on the pronunciation, because she seems to, now this is what she said, she seems to pronounce everything correctly.
She pronounces most things, not everything. There are certain things.
Not every, there's quite a few words that she doesn't.
And it's not for lack of trying, because she was given information, but kind of late, like there's something she was not given. And because I'm working through the publisher, Tantor Media, which is, they're fine. She's a great narrator. They're a good company. It's just sometimes because there's so many terms, she was not given that. And for example, the one that jumps out to me that she does not get right is the word for Imperator.
Yeah, that's a big one.
She always says Imperator, which is more English types, but the stress is, and somebody mentioned that if you've studied Latin, it's a Latin word. It really is. It's Imperator. So it's Imperator. The stress falls on the A. And it's also the same in Russian. It's literally, it's a Russian word. Imperator means emperor in Russian. So I've stolen from Russian that
Well, you know, you just said you didn't spell it the same.
right. I stole it from not one but two languages in one blow.
Well, I mean, I took, and believe it or not, I took Latin in high school. I had 4 years of Latin.
Well, that's great. That's great. So,
Yeah.
so you get the sense that that's how you would say Imperator.
I mean, now ask me if I remember anything. No.
Same here.
I do remember Daya is God, you know.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Deo, like Deus, Deo, you know, and I've used that term as kind of like a riff of the English word day. So it's like I literally kind of I semi-cheated because it's a fun made up language. So there's certain terms that I just said, you know what, this is fun. I'm just gonna say Daya because I wanted to sound a little bit like the word day. And it has nothing to do with anything. But on the other hand, the word eos is a Greek word to mean morning or dawn. So it's literally, that's lifted from Greek. And you know what? We're not going to be too concerned about it because other languages lift from other languages all the time. English lifts from other languages. Russian lifts from other languages. So you know what? We're, as Atlanteo speakers, we're going to lift from it too. So there we go.
Well, and
yeah.
another thing too is how the Atlanteo language itself evolved.
Yes, that's true.
I mean, the English, there is American English and there is British English, and we're not all the same. And, you know, and even from that, would we understand someone who was speaking Middle English?
Hell no. Nope.
Barely, just
Yeah,
barely.
barely, and maybe even not at all, because
Yeah.
seriously, sometimes we don't understand somebody speaking from another area of the country in the modern day. So it's not, you know, I would say
Exactly.
not at all in most
Yeah,
cases.
Oh, and even the spelling, the spellings of
more in
words.
writing.
Yeah,
We would understand more by reading what they wrote, I
That's
think,
right,
than,
right. Yeah,
than
reading
listening
is a
to
little
them.
bit more. Which makes me think of Chinese, because the Chinese characters, they have the original and the traditional and the simplified, the script. And if you read those characters, you don't have to know the dialect verbally. So you can literally be speaking Cantonese or Mandarin or any other Chinese dialect, and the characters are the same, but boy, do they sound different. So you can read. In
Wow.
Chinese, you can read everything, but you may not be able to speak. So it's really strange. Yeah, isn't that great? Languages are fun. They're just so much fun. And that's part of the reason I think Atlanteo is just going to be something that it's fun for all of us. And yes, it's fictional. Yes, it's artificial, but it's also kind of natural. Like I tried to make it as natural as humanly could be, based on what I think it should be from that time zone, from that time area, with a few little tweaks. And you know, if you notice, my characters in Atlanteo or in Atlantean, like in Ace and Blue, they say the word okay. That doesn't mean it's just because we're reading assuming we're thinking like from Asen's point of view, you know, it's not in English, right? So this is just him. So there should be some kind of an equivalent to okay in his thought process in the Atlanteo language. But obviously it's not, you know, if they would not be using the word okay because they don't know that word until they learn English. So, but
Well, you know, like when he was telling Gwen, he was, you know, he's calling his mom mother.
right.
When he's a child, and in a few scenes in Survive, it's mamai.
That's right. It's more intimate because it's going for the raw, for that emotional connection of the real language. So
I mean, I'm thinking, you know, every time I hear that, I think mama.
that's exactly right. It is. That's the term, because it goes for the root of the word, the ma word, which I mentioned before. It's the same language at all. Almost every language on this planet uses some form of ma to mean mother. Mama. In Russian, it's mama. In Armenian, it's Mayra. So there's like a lot, I mean, other variations. And I believe Maat was the ancient Egyptian goddess, like a progenitor goddess.
Yeah.
And that is actually, that's also mother. So it's like the mother goddess in some ways. So boy, do we go a long way. It's like, if you keep going, every ancient language seems to have that form. So yeah, And it's like, it's easy to think, let's take a form, let's tweak it a little bit, make it, make it what goes with my gut, what I feel is right to be, and make it that, make it official. So,
Well, and I will say in Dawn of the Atlantis Grail, because now you're going to be working with ancient Atlanteo.
yep, what we call classical Atlanteo, which is something.
And
that
very
we-
few
yeah,
people in modern Atlantis can understand them.
That's right. The priest, Sherachtet is the name of the priest. He's the. he's
I
one of
would
the
think
few
Asen
people-
would know some, but not all.
Yeah. Asen has studied it, but he's not as fluent. He would not be as, because it's not his primary thing. So he would be able to recognize it. He would speak it because, again, as the imperial heir, he has to know a lot. He's been tutored. He has been prepped. His head is full. Poor man. He has so much up there in his head. Besides the map of the world, as those of you who's read,
Oh,
the-
yeah.
poor boy, he has got to read. And I think I made it kind of where he had to memorize the map of the whole planet, but I made it open where his father may or may not know it, because it's almost like Ronghutad was just being a jerk. He said he made his son.
Well, and not only did he have to know the
Yes.
planets, I mean, the countries on the planet Atlantis, he had to know the demographics.
Yes, and
You know,
they
the
changed.
population, what language do they
Right,
speak?
and those
What is
things
their
change.
capital city?
So they go out of, as soon as he learns it, he'd have to have an update on all these things, 'cause everything's changing all the time.
Oh, new census. Oh, they got 5 new people. Okay. Oh, there was maybe more.
Right, exactly. So it's like, yeah, that was a kind of a power play on his father, asserting kind of like, being a jerk, domineering, asserting his control over his son and just making him do this. But in some ways it's a punishment, in some ways it's for his own good. So it's like, yeah, now he's equipped to really know what's happening around the planet. So he knows.
So I have a
Yeah.
question for you, Vera. So how did you come about creating all the various kinds of names for the people who live on Atlantea? I
Yeah.
said that wrong. Atlantis. Here.
That was fun. That was fun. It involved looking at a lot of languages and names in different countries. I went through like not only American baby names for like American and just Earth characters, but I just went through like lots of like I just Googled and checked and looked around and just looked at names worldwide. I mean, names in India, names in Africa. Just like literally looking around, just Googling for name, give me a list of names. So however they sounded to me, I thought, you know what, an Atlantean might have some kind of form of that name. Like Kokai. Kokai is an actual name. It's an Earth name. I believe it's an African root. In other words, I don't know which country in Africa, but it is an African name. And I decided that Kokai is going to be a real name in Atlantis. So let's just call him Kokai.
That's
And
one of my favorites.
yeah, and
I
it's a
just
real
like
name.
The
So-
way it rolls
Like
off.
that one
the
too.
right, exactly. And it's a fun
Yeah.
name. And he's a fun character. He deserves a fun name. He's not going to be called Fred, So,
George. No.
Glorg or something, that's not him. That's, So yeah, so you get the idea. And then the name of Deneb Gratu, Deneb, Deneb is a great big star. And I always think of Deneb as like this big bloated giant. So just like Deneb's ego and his, power plays and stuff, he's just a big bloated giant. So that's what Deneb is, a real star in heaven somewhere. And that's what this dude is. He thinks he's a star, and that's what he gets. So, but not long lived. So you know how that ends.
One of your fans wrote in the chat, Arwen wrote, language and culture are inextricably intertwined. Adding a unique language to tag creates a rich cultural experience for us readers. And I just thought that was a real insightful.
Thank you to her. Thank you to Arvin. I figured if we want to go that deep, we might as well go all the way, because you can't. That's a part of the culture without having that flavor of words peppered all throughout the books, you're just not going to get the same feeling. So I think, you know, I'm glad it works. You know, I'm glad it makes it, gives it that flavor of ancient and alien at the same time. Ancient aliens. Ding, ding, ding. So there you go.
And I thought it was interesting during the second stage of the games when they were on the pyramid and the Egyptian gods were coming to Gwen, that they were speaking to her in a different language that she didn't know, but she understood them.
Right, right. The sense is that they were really speaking ancient Egyptian. It could be a form at that, according to our story, it could be a form of classical Atlanteo, because again, that whole time it's so far away, there could be a blend. So they were speaking something that could be classical Atlanteo or ancient Egyptian or a combination of, or maybe even more ancient, because, you know, there are other gods besides them or they, you know, however we want to call them. So there are other godlike aliens and godlike others that came before them, and they don't even know who they are, but somebody created the human race. So let's leave it as a mystery. We don't know yet. So there may be more about that in the prequel.
Ooh.
Ooh.
Somebody in the chat asked, who was it? Let me see. Oh, Kathleen Smith asked, since you grew, you know, you were born in another country, speaking a different language, do you still think in the other language, or do you think in English now?
It depends on what I'm thinking about, but if I'm thinking of, as I'm writing, I have to think in English because I'm literally writing out the words. But when I do math, I have to go to Russian.
I knew
And
that.
that's part of my
I
problem.
knew the answer to that one.
And I switch back and forth, and boy, does it get lost in translation.
And that's when you call for help.
That's what I call help, and I can't add one. You know, I'm off by one or something horrible because I can't count. I never could. And you know what? I am not being fair to this because back in Russia, before I knew English, I had the same problems. I would still have to really say, this is what happens. I have to verbally say out the words. The numbers I don't see numbers as numbers. I see numbers as the sound of a number. I have no concept of a number. That's how my brain is. Like I remember things by musical notes. Like so, I remember learning multiplication tables in Russian by singing them, like just singing this. So I wouldn't like 5 times 5, 20, you know, something like that. But in Russian, and I would remember that's the sound of that word, and then I would stop, translate the musical sound to what that means in Russian, in the language. And then I would like remember, okay, 25 means it's a 2 and a 5. So it's like really strange defect in my brain. I do not have a concept of numbers.
So no concept of the numbers underlying the sounds.
Yes, that's exact. I have a concept of sound, but I just don't, I'm like, I don't know if it's a problem. Really, I'm not kidding you guys. I cannot, when I have to give my phone number, I panic for a moment because I have to sing it in my head. In Russian. So it's like, not only I have to sing it in Russian, and then I can give you my phone number or my zip code anytime. And it's like people ask me for my address. Like I cannot verbally, also, I cannot spell in English at all. When you ask me to spell a word, I cannot even spell my own name because the sound of my spelling of the letters is different from what that sounds to me in my head. So it's a weird quirk, and that's how my brain works. But on the other hand, I can remember the roots of words. I can do these weird things with language. It's just the numbers that get me. So numbers, moron. It's like, sorry.
Somebody just popped in
Like
and
us.
said that's a form of synesthesia.
Yes, I've heard, and I think I do have that. I've talked to some people about it. Yeah. And it's got to be music. That's part of the reason why I like that whole idea of like making my character sing and key with sound and vibration, is because I kind of key my brain. I have to sing things to remember them. That's how it works.
Cool.
Weird.
Different.
Yeah. I missed whether or not you answered the question of whether there's ever going to be an official Atlanteo dictionary.
Yeah, there should be one, because obviously it's still a work in progress. There's not enough words for one yet, but at some point, probably in the middle of writing the prequel, or maybe even after it's done, I will come up with enough. I will have enough material for a full dictionary. Right now, there's only probably just like a chapter's worth of words. So it's not enough at all for anything. But we will have more words. We will have more terms and rules of grammar, because you can't just have words. You have to have how to use those words. You know, what are the grammar what are the grammar rules in this particular language? And I don't know yet. Sorry, guys. I can give you things like imam revu or nefero eos imam revu, which just, it's a sentence. And yes, it is kind of logical in my mind, but I don't have the rules for it yet. I have to think about it. It will happen.
Will you
someday.
ever give us the, like, how to count from 1 to 10 or the colors?
Yes,
basic colors?
I've created the numbers in terms of visual pictures. I don't know how they sound. So I would have to, that's something, yeah, I have to make a conscious decision to sound out those little shapes that I've drawn. And colors, good point. I will come up with colors, because that you got it. How can you have 4 color quadrants without colors?
Without the
Exactly,
names,
right,
yeah, without the
right.
names.
So I will come up with at
Yeah.
least those 4 for now, you know.
And black,
Right.
black.
Blue,
White.
black,
And white.
yeah,
And white.
right. The basic, just like think of the games of the Atlantis Grail, the uniform colors were those 5 basic colors,
Mm,
or 5, you know, like the 4
yeah,
primary.
white,
And, yeah,
white
right,
added.
right,
And then black for the black armband.
exactly. Yep. So, well,
we
good
have-
idea, and I will do that. That's
Ricky's asking, does Atlantean use the words yes, no, or positive, negative verb like Mandarin?
I have not decided. That's grammar. Those are rules of grammar, and we may or may not have it, because in Russian we do a lot of that. We have a lot of like double negatives, triple you know, weird combinations. So I'll think about it. Give me time and we'll come up with it, because that's a rule. That's a rule of grammar. So to be determined.
Sometimes life is to be determined.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like, let it happen. As the story grows, so does the languages, and I mean the vocabulary, grammar rules, and so on. So more.
I will say I was a little surprised with the names of Ace and Gwen's children, that they didn't have very many that were different as far as you know, strictly an Atlanteo, you know, word.
Part of it was they were kind of really trying to honor a bunch of people at the same time. So because again, they were not just general regular population of Atlantida. They were not just plain ordinary citizens. They were like royals, and they had all these issues with family members, and they had to honor this, that, you know, and so there's a lot of this kind of like respectfully naming their eldest, the second, and so on, and the middle name, which don't exist in Atlanteo, but they gave middle names anyway. So yeah, it's pretty much they worked on that. So yeah.
Well, it made it interesting, because I think at one point we were thinking that they were going to be all totally different names. So
They could have been, but because again, I think Gwen really, like, she wanted to honor her mother. They wanted to honor the dead Imperator. They wanted to, you know, any people who gave him a lot of support. So, you know, once they went through with them, maybe if they were going to have more kids, which I really don't think they are, you know.
They need one more
Plenty
kid.
enough, you know. So
They
they
need
would
one
have,
more.
yeah.
One-
I think that's,
Half a dozen, huh?
They need
Right.
6. They need the clean half dozen.
oh boy. So, but at least one of them was twins. So like poor Gwen only had to have four pregnancies instead of 5. So that makes it a little easier.
yeah, but she was there, and they were kind of quick like bunnies. Those kids came pop, pop, pop.
That's right.
So I can understand having the regular Atlanteans only having just one name and not a middle name. I kind of
Right.
like that, you know, but I'm really surprised that the royalty didn't do like, the royalty here on Earth, where it's like, okay, we want to honor all of these 5 people, so you've got 5 names, but we'll just call you Fred, kind of thing.
Exactly. But in some ways it's actually, I was looking at ancient Egyptian royalties and they pretty much had only one name.
Ah.
So it was like Ramses the second or whatever. It's like he was Ramses, blah, 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 blah. He was just Ramses, so it's like I went with that tradition instead of going with the British, Arthur, George, John, whatever, line it up. So yeah, I could have gone that way, but I thought, what, let's go back to Egypt because that's the closest to it. So it's almost like the idea that he needs one name, like Cher, and a pharaoh needs only one name to be known. So it's like Ramses or, Tutankhamen or whatever, just any single standalone name.
And I am assuming, although we weren't told for sure, but it's just kind of the way things in some royal families, when the heir ascends to the throne, they often change their name. But
The thought, that's not necessary. I will consider that as an option, but in this case, what we have done is just we honored them already. Like the name was so fixed by honoring the dead parent or the whatever. So that may be decided, and I think it's kind of up to the ruler themselves, like that whoever ascends the throne, if they can do whatever the heck they want. So if they want to be known as Pumpkin Willow or whatever, so whatever they would, they could probably do it. But in terms of like sticking with tradition, that's their name. That's what they were given. This is the dynasty, so they're following by name and then dynasty name. So. But good
I have a question about one of the things that you must have spent some time on were naming all of the various warships, the Depret and the
Depet, that's actually straight from ancient Egyptian. It means Depet means boat in ancient Egyptian, and Ra, I just decided to say it's the sun boat. So
yeah, there's that. But I mean, but there's all different classes of
Ardukat,
fighter ships. And,
yes, those the Mafdet, those.
Yes, the Mafdet.
Because it is important. You will get some of this. This is part of world building. Part of it is like when you name it, you name the object. I think there is a weird power in names because you make it solid. You give it so. And it has an explanation. So there's a reason for the names. There's a kind of a focus. So a Mavdet is a single fighter. It's like the needle gun. It's a slim little, almost like a narrow little, like, I'm trying to think, almost like a pen, but like one of those thick, what do you call those pens? It's not really a dart, but it looks like I know it, a kayak. Kayak, like if you invert it, take 2 kayaks and put them on top of each other. So it's like a long thing, but it's really a single fight. So a person gets in almost lying down.
Yeah.
So they're literally almost, it's like
really small.
Right, really small, narrow needle. It's the needle, and they fly like this, kind of like, at their sides with the instruments. So they would have panel instruments right in front. So they get in, they fly fast. It goes really fast, but it doesn't have much other capabilities. I believe it has some military capabilities, but again, it's more maneuverable. So again, each of these ships had its intent, its level of, the kind of function it has, a name to go with that function, and it makes it real. This is part of the naming process. It is part of language by naming objects to make them appropriate. So, and you will
That
get
is food. You named a lot of different foods.
And that happens when we will have a cookbook. So then we will have a lot of fun with the recipes of Atlantean cooking. And there we go. So that's another thing.
Getting back to pronunciation, there doesn't appear to be any general rule as to which syllable is emphasized in a word. So sometimes Like we were just talking about Arducat, for example, would it be Arducat or Arducat or Arducat?
Arducat. Yeah, it goes on the last one. And you know what? I go completely with my gut in that, and a lot of it is how you pronounce things. It's a Russian thing. Like, I think my brain goes to whatever the stress you would say it in Russian, and that's how I stress it. And Arducat, any other, you want to give an example, you're wondering?
Well, there's also Genio or Genio.
Yeah, that one,
Yeah.
okay, that one actually was me not being able to decide, because I said, okay, first of all, if I call him Genio, then people will think of Jenny, like Jenny, or like their English name Jenny. So I didn't want him to, but I kind of wanted to. So I kind of went the other way. I said, okay, Genio, because it's more like, it sounds like that character more. He's not a Jenny. So he's not really a Jenny. No, really. I mean, it's like you have to sound it out and you think, does that fit this character? So yeah, that's a hard G for him. So yeah, but in terms of stressing words, it is a good question that Carrie asked, and it just depends. Like Anu, it's not Anu, it's Anu. So that's
Yeah.
the name of the character.
The
There's some
confusing
other.
one for me, the first time I heard you pronounce it was Imperator, because I think imperial, and so I was always saying Imperator, which is not the way that you pronounce it.
But it's Latin. I pronounce it like you would Imperator. There we go.
Yeah. And
Yeah,
I don't
and
know
that-
any Latin, so.
Right, and it's Latin and it is Russian. In Russian, you say Imperator. So naturally, that's how my brain goes. And the narrator, she's wonderful, but she went the other way. She went with a more English kind of Anglicized, which is fine. That's why I say that there's certain words she did perfectly. You know, there's certain things that are either the stress is a little bit off. I think okay, here's one word that I think she messed up a little bit. The Lvikao drink, which is hard to pronounce in English. It's the LV sound together, Lvikao. So it's like I'm trying to think how you would say it in English. In Russian, it's easy because you have a lot of consonants together. But she said EV. I think she thought that the first letter was not an L, but an I. So she called it Lvikao. And that's not what, that's an L, not a lowercase L. I mean,
Not a-
not
not
an
an
I.
I.
She
I
thought it
will
was an
admit that
uppercase
I thought it was an I at first, and then when I saw it in uppercase, oh, it's an L.
Right.
That's an I.
Exactly. It's a weird, strange word, but it's like, that's how it comes, in my mind, it comes from a combination of cacao, which is the Russian word for cocoa. And in other countries also use the word cacao, and it's Lvikao. So it's like, I tweaked it a little bit, and the l sound is, to me, natural. It just comes natural, Lvikao. So there's no weirdness about that combination of L and together. But it's weird for English speakers. I agree, and I tried to give a kind of a pronunciation for saying, try to call it Lvikao, which is not quite right, but it's closest, like Lvikao. It's not Li, it's Lvi, Lvi. And in
Okay.
Russian, the word Lvi, there's an actual word called Lvi, not Lvi, U. Russian has a vowel, which is U. There's a E and a U. So the U, I know, it's the crazy, right? It's weird. So in Russian, the word Lvi means lions, plural, like the roaring lions. So Lev, like Leo Tolstoy, his name is Lev Tolstoy, lion. That's his first name, Lev Tolstoy. Lvi is plural lions. And it's the same as Lvikao, almost. So don't ask me how that happened, but that's my brain kind of cranking on the back.
You were talking earlier about Genio's name, and
Yeah,
you know, so in your head, you said
it goes
the
back and forth.
word Genio.
Yeah,
and
it's,
in my head, before I knew how you pronounced it, I said Genio because I was thinking Gene, like a man's name, Gene.
right. And it's like, it's such a weird thing, but it's like, in my mind, I see him as that spelling. I'm not sure how to pronounce it. Like, I don't have a strong feeling one way or another, but that's how you spell his name. Isn't that strange? Like, I know how to spell his name, but I can't have I don't have a clear sense of the sound of it. That's like a first for me. Usually it's the other way around. So, okay, that's that boy, you know, his name is Genio. which I think it's, you know, that's the closest that will be more accurate in that language sense. But if you say Genio, I'm not gonna be on your case, because that's okay. That's okay too.
Well, it's more fun when you can you can pronounce something in your head the way that it's intended to be.
Yeah, exactly. And just like, again, I think I mentioned that the TH sound, I decided to use the theta, the Greek th. So it is, you don't separate those two apart. You use it as a theta. So therutat, themisera, it's a th sound. But things like celio, which would be the accurate, you know, if you want to be perfect about it, that's Greek. The X sound is a KS sound in Greek. So you would say celio, but in English you would just say zelio or zelio. And that's okay. Whatever works for you guys.
Well, I'm gonna have to say goodnight to this panel at least, because I
Me
have
too.
to go start up the room for the next trivia thing. So have
And-
fun,
and-
everybody.
And I
Thank
have
you
to
guys
leave
for
as
having
well.
me.
Yes,
See you
I
in
have
the
to
next
too.
panel.
And yeah,
Everybody?
and Carrie too. So we'll see you later.
And so neferonictos imam revu.
Veronica.
Nighty night.
Good night, everyone, and thank you, Vera.
Thank you.